And welcome back. On Monday, the Hong Kong protests saw one of the most violent clashes with police shooting at rioting crowds, injuring nearly 100 people, even hitting one 18-year-old student in the chest. Now, he remains in stable condition, but today, that student is being charged with rioting. Now, this has sparked a swift reaction from Hong Kong's cabinet and the city's leader, Carry Lam, to meet and invoke emergency powers, starting with a ban on people wearing masks used to protect themselves from tear gas or even to hide their identities. So to talk more about this now, we have investigative journalist Ben Swann. He's joining me. So Ben, do you think this anti-mask wearing law is going to be passed? Because we've seen different outcomes here in the U.S. You know, we had the North Dakota pipeline. We had those that anti-mask law in 2017 that passed. But Congress, they couldn't pass the Unmasking Antifa Act last year after a number of Antifa protests in California and Oregon. What do you think?
Yeah, so it's interesting because we have, as you're pointing out here, very rightfully so, we have a history of laws in this country where we do have a Bill of Rights and we have enshrined in our Constitution, freedom of speech. And many of the arguments that have been made about wearing masks during protests is the right to freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. Remember, during the Occupy Wall Street protests, a lot of folks were wearing those the Guy Fawkes mask. From the V for Vendetta movie. And so a lot of different states and municipalities tried to pass laws at that time as well, including the state of Florida, to say you cannot wear these masks when you go out in public, because they were trying to get rid of this. As you are correct, in some cases, those laws have been ruled unconstitutional, but in some cases they haven't. Here in the state of Georgia, where I am, there's actually a law that prevents people from gathering with masks on, and it's a direct law in reference to the Ku Klux Klan. So it's an older law to keep people from assembling wearing a hood. And so the idea behind that is that you have the right to be able to stop people from intimidating by wearing masks. The bottom line is, here in the U.S., we've had a difficult time with it, and we have it enshrined in our Constitution. China has no such thing. Hong Kong has no such thing. And so I think it's very likely that it will pass in Hong Kong.
All right, Ben, so if this is passed, this goes into effect right when they sign on the dotted line. So do you think this is going to actually escalate the situation, or do you think this is going to bring down the tension looking ahead?
No, I do not think it'll bring it down. I think it will absolutely escalate it. Look, do you believe that the majority of these protesters will abide by this law? It's doubtful that they will. It's also important to note that the masks that many of these protesters are wearing are really just kind of either a bandana across the bottom of their face, or they're wearing those masks that you wear that are almost like a surgical mask. And a lot of them are wearing those. Well, a lot of people in China, as it is, wear those, right now. It's not like it completely hides your identity. So it's not like they're wearing a full-on mask. Either way, I think it's very unlikely that those protesters who are demanding significant reforms are going to suddenly cave and say, okay, you said we can't wear the masks, let's take them off. They're already pushing back against the system in so many different ways. I think they'll keep them on, and I think that will continue to escalate what's happening there.
And Ben, also included in this emergency regulations ordinance that they're looking to pass, the last time they used this was 1967, but it's not only the anti-mask, it also gives the government more authority to make arrests, to censor the news, search your house or your business. What else is included in this? And do you think, I mean, you said that the masks are going to incite probably more violence. Do you think that's going to help or hurt this cause too?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Look, in all, there is a kind of a set of provisions that's being used here to give the police more authority in Hong Kong to crack down on what's happening in these protests. Now, the question becomes, if we take the politics out of it, do protesters cave into those authorities? I doubt that they will. That doesn't mean that the authorities are wrong for trying to crack down on it, because if here in the United States, if it were happening, as you pointed out, with the pipeline issues that we've had, authorities here would be doing the same thing. They'd be trying to pass emergency measures to say, we have to get control of what's happening. But if you were a protester who's pushing back, you're not going to respond to any of these measures in a way that says, okay, because you're now applying more pressure, we'll back down. I think what China and the Chinese are going to find out is that the more they squeeze, the more the protesters kind of push back against them. So I don't see how passing any of these measures is going to make the situation better for the Chinese government. I think it will only give the protesters more fuel to their fire. And we saw what happened with this teenager who was shot and killed. It has caused a whole new level of rage among protesters. Obviously, the Chinese authorities say that he was acting out and he was in the wrong. But it has only caused a more explosive response from protesters. I think these measures will as well.
And Ben, we'll see what happens. Like you said, it most likely might pass. We'll see, but I guarantee we're probably going to be discussing this tomorrow as well once we see the fallout from this happen. Thanks so much for your time, Ben.
Farron, thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.